The Grandview Hotel was originally completed in 1902 and opened under the name the St. George Hotel. The walls are 14 inches thick, and every brick of the original building was made in Berryville, and all the original woodwork is clear, not a knot to be found. The hotel was brought to life with the arrival of a special excursion train to Berryville and a gala dance in the Grand Ballroom. In its early years, the hotel was handled by a quick succession of people. The first operator of the hotel was F.M. O'Neill of Green Forest, who took care of the hotel until 1905. From 1906 to 1909, H.D. Case took over, advertising rooms for only $2 a day. J.P. Whitley carried it for the year of 1909. Then in 1910, M.M. Hoagland took over. Hoagland remodeled the building, adding the additional balconies and refurnishing the hotel. He advertised, pointing out the virtues of the spring water and fresh mountain air. S.C. Stokes took over for a year in 1912. From 1916 to 1926, Mrs. A.J. Morrow handled the hotel. In 1926, Mr. and Mrs. L.C. Smith took over and renamed the hotel the Grandview, because of the views from the high porches. At some point during its history, the two words were combined to Grandview. By examining old pictures, we discovered that the original format was to separate the words, and thus we have returned to this form. When Mr. Smith died, his widow continued to run the hotel until it was sold to Dr. John H. Bohannon in 1943. Dr. Bohannon hired Mr. and Mrs. John Emmett of Green Forest to manage the hotel, and they were known to run it as late as 1969, and possibly until it closed a few years later. During the early 50s, the commercial spaces were added to the ground floor to bring in rental income for the building. In 1984, the Grandview was purchased by Phyllis and Carl Lower. They began an extensive remodeling attempt to bring the hotel up to modern standards. While the Lowers never managed to get the hotel open, they did accomplish a great deal of work. Tons of old plaster had to be removed in order to plumb and wire the building. They put in new trunk lines for the electrical in the main building, as well as adding plumbing for 14 bathrooms. Unfortunately, the project floundered and the hotel sank backwards as it sat for many years. Alexander Verdon and Sandra Doss purchased the hotel in November of 2005. Since then, the renovation has been an all-consuming process. There was no working plumbing and few working lights when they entered. To date, they have removed over 200 cubic yards of junk brought in and left by the previous owner. After much toil, painting has officially begun on the ground floor. This will lead to the opening of the ground floor, which will house a coffee shop, bakery, and ice cream shop.